Hello, what you see here in dark red is a preset of a standard surface shader in Arnold. You know I'm a declared fan of the Arnold renderer, beautiful work by Solid Angle in Spain. I appreciate other renderers, of course, but Arnold makes things so easy and some things are so sexy when you render them with Arnold that it's just beyond speech. So you have to look at things. Like at this scene, for example. I don't want to build this scene from scratch for you now. You know enough from the previous tutorials how to do it, basically. Just show you what's in the scene. And the main topic of this tutorial is the preset section here. It has such wonderful things like balloon, which we see right now, blood, brushed metal, bubble, etc. And it's 26 all in all. You can mix them, of course, and build your own ones, but the prefab, the preset, so to say, the prefab shaders are 26 in number, and we want to demonstrate our viewer today all 26 in their beauty. And in order to do this, I thought camera motion is a thing which didn't appear a lot in my previous videos. So this time we'll use the graph editor and do a little camera animation. And the way I want to do it is this. I made this little drawing here. You see several objects. They are supposed to be the same objects with different colors, meaning shaders, Arnold Surface Shaders, presets. 26 all in all. I didn't draw all of them in one line. And I want the camera to move from the left to the right to have a look at each of the objects with the different shaders. And this is what I'm going to do now. So I'll explain the scene first. So we have an Arnold shader here on that object. What is that object? It's this object here. It's a platonic solid. I modified it a little bit, so it's a bit different from the original shape where it comes from. You see, I changed some parameters here. I introduced two light sources. One is this light. It's you find it under Arnold Lights area lights. It's an area light which I scaled a little bit to the side, and I tilted it so it looks to that object. I copied that thing by Control D and moved and rotated it to the other side. So we have two identical area lights. In the background is the Arnold light called Sky Dome light, and I reduced its intensity to very little, 0.2. It gives just a basic illumination of the whole scene, but not much else. Now, when I render this, that's what you just saw, it is quite okay. The resolution could be better, but I don't care right now because it's about speed now. Down here you can see several things I rendered before until I got the idea to make that camera Dollyride along all the objects, which we'll see later. And since the Arnold shaders deal a lot with reflection, I want something more interesting than just the gray light dome to reflect on that surface. And for that purpose, I introduce a procedural texture to the sphere which wraps around the whole scene. So with the sphere selected, the sky dome as it's called, the color currently is set to white. That's why we see sort of a gray here. We go to the icon with a checkerboard and we choose, for example, bulge. And you already see here that something has changed. We have a little, the color is not constant anymore here. And here we can change the hue width and many other things. You see, that's what it looks like now in the preview window, and pretty similar in the render view. and we can make it even slimmer like this. And then we go to place 3D texture and make the repetition higher. It's wrapped around the sphere now 4 times in each direction, U and V. Let's go to, say, 100. And we have these little things here which will start doing their reflective work on the surface of our main object. And let's do the wrapping here. Instead of 4, let's make it 20. So it gets even more interesting. Now, next step is we have this scene, and press the space bar and go to the top view. And we want to change the top view, really, by introducing a new camera, and we'll use the top view to be the camera view later on. So we create a camera under Create, Cameras, Camera. And the camera sits in the center of the scene. If you move it, it looks like this. This is the camera we have. And now press and hold the space bar and you get the what is it called? Whatever. Under panels you go to perspective to camera 1, because that's what you want to look through. You want to look through camera 1 now. This is what camera 1 sees. If you press spacebar and spacebar again, the camera sits here. That's why it doesn't look into very interesting perspectives, really. But if you lift it a little bit and go back here, it looks more interesting, and actually you can move the camera here. All right, like this. So now we position our camera so it has a nice view, and since we want 26 of these objects in a row, we'll make this much, much wider. Maybe like this. Maybe this is too wide, I don't know. And now we choose a position for the camera which is joyful, which we like. This is the camera, we're looking through that camera. Does that look suit us? Do we like it? So we render. This is what the render looks like now. Why is that? Looks totally different from this one. And the reason is because we're still rendering the perspective shape, the general modeling window which we started off with. If we use this flip menu, we go to camera shape, and this is what the camera sees. This is actually this view here. Very good. Do we like it? We kind of like it. I think we could make this light a little bit stronger, and we do this here under the intensity, but we don't want this color here to bleed out into total white as it would do like here. This would be too bright, like this maybe. This looks quite good. And then let's have a look at the rear light. That's that one. And shall we make it stronger as well? We will see the intensity. Well, I don't think so. Not much stronger, really. By the way, normalize is an important thing here. If you click normalize, Arnold looks at the whole scene and thinks we will adjust all the volumes, all the intensities of the lights so that we have a balanced lighting situation. We don't want that here. We want a strong light from the back, from the front, and a very diffuse light from the back. So I think we can live with this. We move this a little bit to here, and I think the ground plane could use a new material, make it a little bit interesting, and give it, for example, well, an Arnold Surface Shader. And instead of the plain color white, we'll choose a ramp. And the ramp, I think we need to check this here. The ramp, you can see it's darker here already. So let's move this a little bit in and render it again. So we have this surface now, which is reflective. We could turn the reflection down as well if you wanted, but this looks nice to us. And we have a little change of grayness here in this direction. So I think this is almost perfect. So there we are with our camera. Now let's select the camera. How do we do this? We do this by selecting it here, for example. This is the whole scene setting. You know, on that long board. We're right in the middle now. And I want the camera to not rotate in Y. And here we have a rotation of -4 in Y. I want to put this to 0. So it looks straight forward. And let's move the camera right here. Now it's in the center. It's looking straight forward. It's aligned to the geometry of the long board. Now we'll move the whole section here to the very left. And the interesting thing is that we'll select both lights and the object plus the camera and nothing else. Here in the outliner we can see it, the platonic sphere plus the area light and the camera, but not the sky dome light. We don't have much more in the scene anyway, and not the plane, of course. And I move the whole arrangement to the left. And this is where I want to start my animation. The camera view is here now. It looks the same as before, and in the rendering it looks the same as before as well. We will animate the camera so it will move along the whole board from the left to the right and look at 26 objects. We currently have only one. We'll have 26 in a minute. And in order to animate the camera, we would select the camera, set a keyframe, and to the end of the animation we set another keyframe so it moves here. But we will use a trick. And that trick is the following, and it has to do with hierarchy and with parenting. It's very simple, really. If we move the camera, and only the camera here, let's select the camera, it moves like this. I undo this, and I will select the area light and the other area light, and then the camera. The area light, the camera needs to be selected last, and then I press the key P. P for parenting. And now I have the camera here, and under the camera in the hierarchy are the both area lights. So when I move the camera now, I will do this in a second. Set a keyframe here now for that group. It's a group, the camera group with lights together. Press the key S. Sets a keyframe here for the camera group. They are all keyframe now. And since the animation should be a little bit longer than 120 frames, which is basically 5 seconds, let's put it to 1000 frames. And I go to the end of the animation, and then I move the whole group to the end of the board, which is about here. And I check it here. This is the camera view. Looks totally all right. And you know why the polyhedron, why it's not there. We left it there. We didn't group it with together with a camera. So if we render this situation now here, Arnold render, we're at the end of our board, and there's nothing on it, but that's good enough for the animation. So I'm at frame 1000. I press the key S again, so the camera movement will be like this. Here it goes. together with the lights over to here. Now I will duplicate the object of our interest, which is the platonic object. And in order to do that, here it is, I will use Control D. Now I have two of them. The second one is called Platonic 2. And I move it to the side like this. Edit, duplicate with transform, it's Shift D, duplicates the same thing with the same distance. And we're going to repeat this. You can press Shift D now several times, or the key G, which repeats the last command. And we do this several times. Now we have platonic shape 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26. Now we have 26. That's just about right here. Now when we look through the camera window, go to the beginning of the animation, this is what we see. We ride the camera along all the 26 objects, and we have a lot of space here. Then I move the camera back to about here, recheck these this setting here in the camera view. If I move it slightly more to the left, like this, I'm at the most right object. And here I set another key. Basically, I replace the old key. So I type S. So the animation looks like this now. It starts with the first object, and it will slowly start. It doesn't start at the speed it will pick up a second later. Watch out for the speed of the camera. Very slow. Accelerating, faster. And now the speed should be constant until it reaches the end after 1000 frames. And it looks at every single object. Now it decelerates, gets much slower, and it reaches 1000 frames and the 26th object very slowly. We can have a look at the animation parameters by going to Windows, Animation Editors, and Graph Editor. The Graph Editor shows us this line, and this is the line of our animation, the motion in X, translate X. That's the axis along which we did the animation. And this means it slowly starts, it goes to a harmonious speed, and then it decelerates again. We can change this if you like and make it like this, but I think it's quite a nice effect to start the animation more slowly and then accelerate. So I mixed it a little bit in between now. We will apply different shaders to all our different objects now. And this is a thing which is pretty easy to do, but I'll skip it forward in a second. So let's start with this one. This shader has, let me get this, the attribute editor here in the middle so you can see what's going on here on the right. If I go to presets, balloon, replace, so I have the balloon now. This is the balloon shader. That's how I started with. Next one should have another Arnold Surface Shader with the next preset, which is called blood. Now we need 26 surface shaders, and I'll show you how to create them very simply. Go to Windows, go to rendering because it's about rendering, and here you have Hypershade. Hypershade is an impressive window. The selected is the shader we currently have placed on our object, and it looks a little bit like this, and it's called the standard surface shader with a preset here. So what we will do now is, oh, by the way, this is the surface where our object is standing. The Lambert is not used in this scene. It's a default Maya shader, and we have a particle cloud which we don't use in this scene either, and we have a shader glow which we don't use either. So we basically have three shaders, and this is the one we're interested in. So we press Ctrl D to duplicate it, and here it is. This is the duplicate, and we duplicate, we can select both, I think, yeah, and duplicate them. So we should have 4 now. So we duplicate the 4, Ctrl D, now we have 8. So we give the second shader to the left, from the left, we give it the second preset, and we replace it. We could blend it with a current shader, which is the, what is it called, the balloon, but we want to replace it to have a really concrete look at all the presets. So that's the number 2. It looks like this. It's red, by the way, and now we go to number 3. And number 3 will be brushed metal, replace. And this is how we proceed. I fast forward now. So now I have assigned presets to all of the copies of our first shader here. Now I'll apply the different shaders to the different platonic objects. This is how I'm doing it. I select the object number 2 and right mouse click, I assign the material to the selection. Just to show that it works, let's have a look at the rendering now. This is the beginning of our camera motion. Let's move the camera a little bit further over here, and you see it's a different shader. That's what we wanted to achieve. If we go to the next one, is still the first shader because we haven't changed it here. So we go to the Platonic 3 now, open our Hypershade window again. Where is it? Here. And right mouse click on the third material and apply the material to this one. So we see that's what's happening now. And I'll come back once I'm ready. So this is what they look like now. What is happening here? You see, it's here, but you can't see it. So that's the Platonic object number 4. And if we move the camera forward, we can use the time slider now to move the camera forward. Let's check what it looks like. It is here. It's the bubble shader. It sort of looks through the whole scene. So now we're ready to render the animation, render settings, and you choose a rendering, maybe JPEGs, quality 100, and we want to render the camera, not the perspective window. We want to not render a single frame, but many frames. And we use a name and extension with 4 frame paddings, meaning frame 999 will look like frame 0999, which is good. The start frame is 1 and the end frame is 1000. And we can close it or increase the render settings here in the Arnold renderer, which I won't do. We'll have some graininess in the shadows especially, but you get a basic impression about what this animation means. And this is a demonstration of the 26 default shader presets of the Arnold Surface Shaders looked at from this camera in a very nice panning process. I hope you enjoyed this and you will use Arnold a lot. I definitely like it. So this is the animation I rendered in a very high resolution, actually, 1920 by 1080 pixels. It took my machine, which is quite powerful, a PC, exactly 1 day to render. 1000 frames, that is. And now here we have the results. Since it's the student edition, Arnold shows the watermark, which is not peculiar sexy. I find it interesting that the background doesn't move. That's probably unique to the Sky Dome. And here we start with brushed metal, I guess, a bubble, car lacquer, I think. This is maybe chrome. Subsurface scattering will come in a second. Like skin. It's gonna be that's gold again. Maybe another gold. That one, that subsurface scattering. And of course I will post the animation in full resolution later here on YouTube.